Our subject this morning deals with the mystery of the human body. And I think it is probably proper, in a sense, to start with the beginning. In this case, we know that the physical body of the human being is sustained, developed, and unfolded by the use of available physical energies. Our body is composed of practically every element that we know exists and others that we do not know. We realize also that, as Plotinus described it, we come into a world in which most of the elements necessary for health and integration are already polluted before they are built into our own organisms. We breathe in pollution with the first breath of life. We find pollution present in the body of the mother, pollution that cannot be entirely avoided. The parent has to live upon the food products, upon the environmental pressures of the world. And these are all involved in the production, maintenance, and growth of each individual. Thus we come into a physical world that is full of problems. And we come into a physical body that is full of problems. This point seems to have been generally neglected in the consideration of man and his environment. We realize that the deficiencies in chemistry, in all the processes of nutrition, all these deficiencies not only affect the body, but condition the person inhabiting that body. We do not come into a beautiful physical purity because this purity does not exist in the physical world. Thus, many temperamental problems, difficulties, which we find within ourselves are very largely due to the chemical imbalances of the elements with which the body is built. We have, therefore, not only to fight against the pressures of many forces around us that we do not admire, but we are required to adjust to the conditioning influence of these processes within ourselves. We cannot entirely separate our mortal existence from the mortality which surrounds us and actually inhabits us. To meet this situation, the modern thinking has developed a number of concepts of nutrition and has sought ways to overcome the most obvious and active pollutants. But by the time we grow up to the point of self-significance, where before even the years of majority, we have already inhaled the problems of humanity. We have taken them into ourselves. And the nutrition that we depend upon, to even the light of the sun, is not coming to us in its best possible form. Due to this conditioning, we find that various imbalances, deprivations of essential materials, have a direct effect upon our emotions, upon our thoughts, and upon our professions, trades, and attitudes. We know that the basic discomforts of the body result in discomforts of thought and feeling. And we discover pressures within ourselves which we do not know how to explain. We do not know how to trace them for the most part. but they come out upon us and through us as dispositions, as attitudes, as allegiances, as loyalties and disloyalties. In other words, the human being in the body is not comfortable. Recognizing this inevitable fact, each individual is confronted with the problem of recognizing the sources of attitudes which he may believe to arise from the deepest parts of himself. They do not necessarily have this origin. And even if the basic instincts and intuitions do come from within the individual, they must pass through a partly corrupted body in order to come into manifestation. And as a result of this, the body itself is unable to provide an appropriate environment for consciousness or for the higher ideals of human nature. Corruption always lowers thresholds. It always makes things less than they should be. It distorts. And in various departments of our living, this distortion is viewed as disposition, as temperament, as character. And we sort of feel that these distortions are the real self, and they are not. So getting in is not easy. Getting out is not easy. And being here is not easy. The individual makes every effort that he can, for the most part, well-intentioned, to adjust to the environment in which he finds himself. And very often this adjustment itself is nothing more than a compromise. The individual does the best he can considering the conditions in which he exists. And these conditions, unfortunately, are also operating inside of him. In addition to this type of problem, the body is exposed externally to a wide variety of pressures. There are certain forms of pollution which hit us from the outside as well as from the inside. Also, we realize that world psychological pressures, many of which originate in biology, are continuously afflicting the best parts of ourselves. They are continually preventing us from manifesting the reality that we would like to know and understand. The ancients, therefore, gave us the concept that the body is the living temple of the living God. Each human body is a sanctuary for a spiritual entity or reality. This body, this temple, has been in various ways corrupted. Jesus said that they had made the temple of God a place of merchandise. And he drove the merchants from the steps of the temple with a whip of small cords. More intelligently viewed, more carefully considered, this temple, which has become a place of merchandise, is also within ourselves. We have gradually lost the strength, the vitality, or the incentive to maintain properly this living temple. Most folks do not even bother to consider the body a temple. Our attitude towards our own physical structure is almost unbelievable. In the first place, to most individuals, the body is merely a servant of the purposes of the will, the mind, and the emotions. The body is merely a kind of animal which is supposed to draw wagons as horses did, which is supposed to be a faithful servant to the pressures that are forced against it. We have already discovered scientifically that the moods and attitudes of the individual have a very strong effect upon the body, but we have not fully realized the power of the body itself to affect the individual. We still take it for granted that we rule the body, that it will do what we order it to do. But between the difficulties in the physical structure itself and the difficulties in the mental and emotional complex which dominates the body, we have many reasons to understand why illness and suffering appear to be inevitable. There is no clear evidence or proof that nature itself wants man to suffer. Nature wants the individual to grow. Nature has provided an environment suitable for growth. And the human being has gradually, over a long period of time, compromised his principles, and in so doing has, in one way or another, adversely conditioned the world in which he lives. So here we are, as persons, inhabiting two environments: the larger environment of the world and the smaller environment of our own body. We realize also that it's very difficult to balance man's relationship to his own flesh. We have a great many health experts who are very much involved in the conditioning of the body. We know that we produce some of the world's finest athletes, and that all over the world the training of the body for athletic purposes is an acknowledged procedure. But in the training of the body, we have to get into another difficulty. We are apt to gradually create the concept that the body in itself is the most important of all things. We are inclined to compromise or even deny the growth of the person in the body in a very deep, powerful program of maintaining the physical form itself. Now, the physical body has laws. Everything in the universe is ruled by law. And the laws of the physical body are very simple, actually, although very difficult to enforce. The law is that the body is the instrument by means of which the individual is able to exist in this material world. Without the body, he is a vaporous abstraction. Without the body, he has no means of making the contacts with the material world around him, which are necessary to the expression of his inner life or the development of his character. So we have to be a little watchful of those who give the body too much catering. It is not really good for the body to be spoiled by indulgence any more than it is good for it to be impoverished by various forms of deprivation. The body has its own rules. The body is a useful servant, but not a good taskmaster. It is very important to us, but its very importance depends upon its normalcy. Now we have in the world what we might call the good life. This good life is very largely lived at the expense of health. It is a means of indulgence of appetites. Now, appetites actually do not originate in the body itself. They are conferred upon it. But in the gratification of the emotional and psychical appetites, the individual may destroy the body, or make it continually more infirm and incapable of giving its proper cooperation to the inner life which inhabits it. So the care of the body requires a kind of agricultural outlook in which it must be provided with everything necessary, but that if it is overindulged, it in turn gradually develops a kind of tyranny which is given to it by the emotional and mental ambitions of the owner thereof. Going a little further into this situation, we come upon natural protection by which the body seeks to restore itself. The body is a tremendously complicated mechanism, but in the process of its development through millions of years, it has also built strong defense mechanisms. These mechanisms, to function, however, must be given the cooperation of the person inhabiting it. Therefore, we know from sad experience that what we might term the simple life is the best for the body. It is proper for it to receive nutrition